Given what's happening in Turkey's markets and the broader economy, how much does Turkey risk overplaying its hand?
Well, it has already overplayed its hand, and that's why the negotiations between Washington and Turkey fell apart. There are many outstanding issues facing bilateral relations, including Turkey's decision to purchase a Russian missile defense system S-400. And also, the looming Iran sanctions will be very critical and might blow another blow to the bilateral relations. But what President Trump and Vice President Mike Pence have been very interested in has been the release of a U.S. pastor who has been detained in Turkey since 2016 on trumped-up terrorism charges. And the Turkey wanted to receive concessions from the U.S. side and ask that the U.S. hand over an Islamic preacher who has been residing in Turkey, and the Turkish government is accusing him of orchestrating the failed coup. And Turkey had other demands too, but apparently the Turkish side overplayed its hand, and that's why the United States, in an unprecedented move, decided to slap sanctions on a NATO ally.
Given the president's evangelical base, how important is the pastor issue for his presidency?
It's quite important, and again, there are many other issues, but I think President Trump and the U.S. administration are willing to compromise on those issues, but not the release of Pastor Andrew Brunson. And I think that's why this is very critical. The decision also, although the decision to impose sanctions on Turkey, I think it's a symbolic decision. It won't have a large economic impact on Turkish economy. Although Turkish lira has suffered its biggest loss since 2001 after the U.S. decision, but still I would argue that the sanctions are largely symbolic, targeting two Turkish ministers that are close to President Erdogan. But at the end of the day, I think if the U.S. does not follow up with further sanctions that will bite Turkish economy, President Erdogan will not change course.
So Gonul, they may have been symbolic, but they came at an unfortunate time given what else is going on with the Turkish economy. I mean, the lira already was weakening. The bond yield already was going up. So let's assume for the moment, it's a big assumption they could resolve this problem with Pastor Brunson. Is there any solution for Turkey's economy that President Erdogan would accept? Because it appears it's going to have to require monetary tightening, maybe the IMF coming in, they would have strictures put on them. Is President Erdogan willing to do any of those things?
I'm not sure. He recently announced a plan. He will announce the steps that he will take to address economic problems. And I think the investors were not relieved after hearing what he had to offer. He has to carry out structural reforms, which are, of course, very unpopular. And there are municipal elections coming up in 2019. So I don't think President Erdogan, he has been playing a very important role over financial decision making. And the Turkish Central Bank is not independent, and there's no rule of law in the country, and the country's economy is very much dependent on foreign investment. So that's why I think all these structural problems have scared away investors, and the problems that the country is facing with the United States is making it worse. So I don't think Turkish economy, even though Andrew Brunson is released, will get on the right track.
Well, and at the core of that is the problem that President Erdogan wants to spend more money than Turkey has. Simply put, he's running a structural deficit. It requires foreign direct investment. They've got balance of payments deficit, and he'd have to actually retrench some of his spending plans, which he seems to be committed not to do.
That's right. Again, I mean, in the past, before the elections, Turkey's economy has been overheating, and the President Erdogan, he was not willing to listen to orthodox views about how to solve these problems, and he has rather very unorthodox views when it comes to economic and financial management. So that's part of the problem. And he recently appointed his son-in-law, who will be in charge of Turkish economy. And that's also not good news for foreign investors. So that's why I don't think he will take necessary steps to address the economic problems of the country.
So tell us about some of those necessary steps. What could the president do in order to gain foreign investor confidence?
Well, of course, the number one issue is the independence of the central bank. And President Erdogan, for years, has been trying to monopolize centralizing power in his own hands. And economy is just one area. If you don't have an independent central bank, that's a major concern for foreign investors. And also the rule of law, it's become very much politicized. It's never been there. Turkish rule of law has never been perfect, but under this administration, it's been very politicized, and I think that's another problem for foreign investors, and the president has to tackle those.
Gonul, what about the Turkish people? Are they feeling the crunch here? I mean, as you see, really, inflation over 15% or something like that, are things getting more expensive for them? Is it affecting their lives?
I mean, certainly, but we recently had historic elections on June 24th. People voted for members of parliament, elected members of parliament, and the country's president. And President Erdogan, even though we have seen economic vulnerabilities before the elections, people still overwhelmingly voted for President Erdogan. So that suggests that they're still not really feeling the effects of economic difficulties.
So let's talk a little bit about the diplomatic relations of Turkey right now, because you mentioned Turkey buying that air defense system from Russia. Does this mean that everything that's unfolding right now will put Turkey closer to the Russians?
Well, Turkey has cultivated very close ties to Russia, and by purchasing S-400 is just one angle. Turkey also depends very much on Russia for its energy needs, and working very closely in Syria. But on the other hand, I wouldn't think that this is not a strategic relationship. The two countries, they have to work together. They need each other in terms of trade too. But on the other hand, I think both countries understand that there are limits to their cooperation. In Syria, for instance, Turkey launched 2 military incursions into Syria, and those happened mainly because after a green light from Russia. But now the Russians are signaling that they will not be tolerating long-term Turkish military presence inside Syria. So that suggests that there are limits to that cooperation. And I certainly do not think, and I don't think President Erdogan and his close circle think that relationship can be a replacement for Turkey's strategic partnership with the United States.